Hi everyone, quick video on the Yongnuo YN-622 triggers. Just a quick explanation as to how they work, and also a bit of an issue to tell you about with one of the ones that I've got, in case you get that. But they are really good wireless triggers, and especially if you wanted to use ETTL, but you can use them in other modes as well, obviously manual, which is, if you have a better understanding, I suppose, of flash and groups and things like that, then manual is probably the way to go. But I like using ETTL too, especially if, you know, they always say that ETTL is a good system to use if the lighting is changing, and sometimes, you know, with the stuff that I want to do in the garden with wildlife, it quite often says. Back to these, so basically there's a couple of units. This is the YN622-C TX. Okay, now, so this sits on top of your camera. You can use the items in your camera menu to set up your flash, or you can use this, and it's quite comprehensive. The other units are the YN622C, and I have two of these, and this is a transceiver, which means it transmits and receives. Basically the idea or the reason for having these, if you want to get into ETTL, and I'm talking Canon, but they do Nikon versions as well. The camera needs to be able to communicate with the flash to give a correct exposure for a given aperture, for instance. So if you set f5.6 on your camera, or f8, you need the correct amount of flash to do that. And especially if you're bouncing the flash, and these triggers will communicate with the Canon's ETTL system and control the flash wirelessly to give the correct exposure. And just a word on that, actually, you need to set the flash exposure metering in your camera to average. If you set it to evaluative, it will always underexpose. I've done some tests with that, and it is mentioned on the internet elsewhere. So if you're using Yongnuo kit wireless flash, set your camera metering, flash metering, to average, not evaluative. It won't work correctly. So that's basically how it works. And so with this kit that I've got here, 3 units, this will go on the camera, and these will go on a compatible flash. So I can have 2 flashes. I can divide those into 2 groups I want. I could have group A and group B, and I could have a different amount of flash on each of those groups. So that's basically it. And for instance, we'll stick it on a camera. So you would go into the flash control on your camera, external flash function setting, and I don't know if you can read those down there, but I've got ETTL2 set. It's currently on high speed mode, but you could do it on first curtain or high speed. There's your flash exposure bracketing, and you can set that if you wish. The ETTL2 meter, as I just mentioned, is set to average. Zoom, you can set it to whatever you want. A wireless function is on enable, but that can be disabled. Master flash is disabled because this is not a flash. And then most of the other stuff down there is to do with grouping. Here I've got a Yongnuo flash, and they are pretty good. I'll stick that on there. Okay, and then we switch the flash on, switch the trigger on, make sure it's on group A, C1. Okay, you may not see this go off in the video, go. So I don't know if you can. Let me stick the light on. Oh, there we go. Let's get that light to come back on. So you can see the aperture changing when I change it on the camera. Okay, so basically this trigger on the camera is sending the information to this, and it's telling me what aperture I've set. And what will happen is when I take the picture, and if any of you do fully understand Canon ETTL flash, there is a pre-flash. You won't normally see it. It's a metering flash which goes off before the main flash. Okay, and basically there's such a lot happening between the pre-flash and the main flash, but when I go to take the picture with the camera with this trigger on, it sends a signal to this trigger to set off the pre-flash. That tells this what the exposure will be for my aperture that I've set. This will go back to the camera and it will communicate how much power to allow the flash to use. Okay, everything works perfect, it's brilliant, it's really good. Having said that now, just the main reason for doing this video is I have an issue with one of my transceivers, which, having just done that demonstration, chances are is this one. These are the two transceivers, and I've got one transceiver on this camera and one transceiver on this flash. Okay, so you can see as I'm changing the aperture on the camera, and it is on the flash. Okay, and also the camera is set to a 2,000th of a second, and as you can, underneath the 24 is a high-speed sync symbol. So I'm going to swap them over now. So even though on the camera I'm changing the aperture, it's stuck on high speed and f22, and if I turn the shutter speed down to 100th of a second, the high speed sync symbol is still on, and even though I'm changing the aperture, it's constantly showing f22. So there's a little bit of a fault with one of these triggers, and I have ordered another one. They're about 37 quid, which is not the end of the world. But it's difficult to say which one of these is not working correctly. So I'll get another trigger in tomorrow and see which pair swapped which way around work. But if anybody does use these and you seem to be having weird things happening, but the other thing to note, putting one of these triggers on here, and I think this is the one that's working okay. If I go into the flash control menu, I have all my options. Okay, I'm just going to swap over to the other one. Okay, so this, I've now got the other trigger on, the one I think is faulty. Go into external flash function. I haven't really got any options, and it's basically saying it's stuck on TTL second curtain. So if you do get, they are good triggers, but if you do seem to be having an issue with one, just check that. And also, if I put this one on the flash, it's not changing the aperture. So there you go. That's a bit of an issue that I've found with the Yongnuo triggers. Okay, I'll probably do an update to this video just to let you know how it's gone on. Okay, so after yesterday, got a replacement YN622-C, because as I found out, You know, these are transceivers, so you should be able to use them either way around, swap them between the camera and the flash. But as I'd found out, which I didn't know, one of them was faulty and didn't appear to transmit the correct exposure value to the flash. Therefore my flash was always going to be out, and it actually seemed to stick on the aperture, on whatever aperture I turned my camera on at. However, you can see on here that wherever I turn my camera aperture, the flash follows. And also I've got high-speed flash selected. And I've tried these both way rounds and happy that works okay. So there you go, quick review of the Yongnuo, one of the failings of them. This could possibly have been my fault, and you should always turn off your flash or your camera and then the triggers before you disconnect them. Having things turned on when you're connecting them and disconnecting them can cause a short, causing a bit of a glitch. Okay.